gun violence. What a sad commentary on America. You wish these kids get old enough to get heart disease, because they don't live that long. They're getting killed way too fast. But we're going to have a word of prayer and get started. Let's bow our heads. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity we have to learn more about our bodies and how to keep them healthy and to avoid disease. We're thankful that there is a heart disease that you only can treat, and that's the disease called sin. But as we learn more about how we can live, exercise, and eat to take care of our health, give us wisdom and willingness to follow through. Is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Ali, the time is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm going to make an announcement. Where's Keisha? Sister Keisha. Oh, okay. Where to order online, what companies are available. There's Vitacost, there's Swanson, there's Solar Ray, there's Life Extension. There are legitimate, good quality products you can order from. And so I want to thank you for your patience and understanding. My goal is that despite this little setback on my behalf, that you learn something every time we have a talk. That's my goal, so that you can grow, and this purpose is to improve your health as well as mine, okay? So having said that, the other comment I want to make is that Pastor Kyle will have closing comments after I talk, after the questions. And as a medical doctor, I welcome his opinion. And regardless if we have a difference of opinion, you know what? The respect, mutual respect, and what's the word? Love and admiration is there, okay? So I'm the first one to thank you, Pastor, for sharing your comments after I talked, all right? So today we're going to talk about heart disease. I had one phone call with a sister asking about hypertension, and we will discuss that today, okay? All right then, these are the facts. 2022, 702,000 people die from heart disease in this country. Heart disease cost $252 billion in 2019, 1 year alone. And we have an average of 800,000 heart attacks every year. Now, according to Western medicine, the greatest risk factors for heart disease is hypertension, high cholesterol, and smoking. Now I'm going to talk about cardiovascular disease, which is the name which includes heart conditions that include diseased vessels, structural problems, and blood clots. There's coronary artery disease, which is damaged or disease in the hearts and major blood vessels. There's cardiac arrest, which is a sudden, unexpected loss of heart function. There's congestive heart failure, which is chronic condition in which the heart doesn't pump blood as it should. There's arrhythmia, where there's an improper beating of the heart, whether it's irregular, whether it's too fast or too slow. And then there's peripheral artery disease, where there's the narrowing of the blood vessels that reduce the blood flow. Then we have a stroke. And this is damage to the brain from interruption of the blood supply. There's congenital heart disease, where it's an abnormality of the heart that developed before birth. And lastly is high blood pressure, also called hypertension, where it's a condition in which the force of the blood against the artery wall is too high. Now, hypertension, I said something incorrect. Remember when I said, what's the first mineral that helps against hypertension? I said magnesium. And in reality, it's potassium. Okay, the two go hand in hand. But potassium, again, a little distraction back then. So potassium is the mineral, more important than magnesium, for proper heart function that helps against hypertension. Now, years ago, our sodium intake was about 300 and our potassium intake was about 3,000. And today, our sodium intake for some is about 3,000 and the potassium intake is about 300. Now, some of you might have been told, and I want to see the hands, okay? If you were told by a medical doctor, if you eat okay, you don't need to take supplements. Have any of you heard that from your own doctor? I heard it more than once, okay? And I'm not criticizing, it's just, we have to understand that in Western medicine, there isn't a priority focus on nutrition, okay? And so, if you are having hypertension, the question is, and there's no cause for it, okay? Because you can go to the doctor, you get checked, and the doctor says, you know, you have hypertension, but we don't know why. It's called essential hypertension. I don't know, is that in Western medicine called essential hypertension? Okay. Where we don't know why you have hypertension, but you have it. Now, in those cases, then the recommendation is start increasing to take potassium, okay? And please, 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 do not stop your hypertension, high blood pressure medication, okay? Many times I come across someone who says, I don't like taking pills. I don't like taking medications. And I have hypertension. And I'm the first one to say, you should not ignore this because you run the risk of having a stroke or a heart attack, okay? So if you have hypertension, high blood pressure, and you're taking medication, do not stop taking it. If you start taking potassium, it's not going to go in one day or 1 week. You're not going to bring down your hypertension overnight. So please, do not stop your medication, okay? It's a gradual process where you really need to be monitoring your blood pressure and really talking to your doctor about, easing up with the hypertension medication. Now, 4,700 is the maximum of what the FDA recommends in potassium, okay? I'm not saying take 4,700 milligrams. I'm saying you could start with 500 and you can increase it to 1,000 and work with the numbers, okay? Another problem that not a problem, oh, excuse me. I put the timer because remember when we talked about water last month? I'm going to take a little commercial break. This is the water from your filter, okay? If you want to. Your kitchen here in the church. I don't know if it's hot. Is it hot? Okay. You can pass it around afterwards. This is the water from the filter. And it does not look very clean, as you can see. Okay? It's hot, it's hot. Your kitchen filter here in church. Okay? So, this is the tester. And what it does is simply solidify foreign matter in your water. Okay? So, I don't think anyone wants to drink that water. From your kitchen, yes. Yes. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted the talk, but I had said I would test the water. Okay. So this is a perfect example how we don't realize we're being exposed to, okay? Think about it. You think pardon? Well, what's in this is debris that from the pipes. I mean, how long are the pipes coming from where? Our water source, okay? I'm just going to quickly, it's very hot, but you can see it, okay? Okay? Okay. And so the point is this. This is a perfect example how we think we're drinking clean water, but we're not, okay? Well, because through this process, it just solidifies what's in the water, foreign matter, okay? That's just a water tester, okay? So something for you guys to think about. All right, back to the talk, heart disease. All right. Okay. If you've noticed at some stores, they have a little machine and people pay $1 to get their water. That's worthless, okay? It's just as dirty as this water, okay? I go to a water store where I take my 3-gallon containers, okay? One time I was coming out with my 3-gallon container, and it looks almost like a 5-gallon container, okay? And this man says, "Oh, you're strong." But it's a 3-gallon container, not a 5-gallon. And I laughed because it looked real heavy. But the point is, when you have clean water, you're really going through a filter of at least 5 machines, okay? That really is what separates the good filters from the bad ones, you see? And I have tested that water, that's why I know it's clean, okay? Even those little Brita, the little water pitchers, they're not that good because that little filter cannot really remove all the debris that's in the water in this area, okay? Yes? I'll tell you what I would do, and I did it for many years. I bought distilled water because it's been criticized for having no minerals. But I don't drink water for minerals. I can add lemon juice in acidic water, clean water, and it makes it on the alkaline level. And we'll talk more about water in another topic at another time. but that's the cleanest water there is, distilled water, okay? So if you are taking a vitamin mineral supplement, the purpose of the water is to hydrate your body, and you can add to the water. You can add chlorophyll, you can add lemon juice so that it is a little more sustaining, but the water is to hydrate the body, okay? So that's my recommendation for people who say, what should I get? Because when we're dealing with cancer, we recommend alkaline water to bring down the acidity in the body. Any cancer patient has an acidic body. If you're dealing with severe arthritis or many health issues, your body is very acidic. And so by adding lemon juice or chlorophyll, you're helping the body bring down the acidity levels, okay? So anyways, there's your water from your kitchen filter at church. Okay, let's continue now. Going back to our topic of heart disease. All right, I was saying that potassium also controls the vascular system. For example, if you're running up a hill, your body starts releasing adrenaline, okay? Adrenaline. You know the potassium brings down the adrenaline, okay? Potassium helps when we're dealing with stress. That's where the magnesium comes in, okay? The magnesium is very beneficial because stress will deplete the body of nutrition. And so, two minerals that I recommend for the heart is potassium and magnesium. Now, sometimes we can have palpitations. Yes? What's SVT? Oh, well, it's going to help overall with the heart disease. Of course.
Generally, dietary potassium from food that you might eat, bananas, other forms, is not going to put you at any risk, so to speak. Hyperkalemia, which is where the potassium is too high, or hypokalemia, where it's too low, can trigger arrhythmias in your heart. So if you have normal kidney function, normal dietary amounts of potassium will not put you at risk. For people who have low potassium levels, we put them on supplemental potassium, but then we measure it. So I think if you're going to start a potassium regimen because you're concerned about preventing heart disease, you need to make sure that you have normal functioning kidneys, and that's a blood test, and see where your baseline potassium level is. Because if you're already high in potassium because of a kidney issue, then adding supplements could be more risky. But for a normal, healthy body, dietary potassium should not put you at risk. Your kidneys will filter out what you don't need, and it'll pass out in your urine as water soluble. But what you're getting in a health food store is probably not going to be problematic. We give much higher doses for medicinal purposes than what you're going to find in a vitamin pill. If you have hyperkalemia, if you're used to having high potassium levels, then bananas would be the wrong food for you to eat because they're high in potassium compared to other foods. Okay. SVT is a fairly dangerous cardiac arrhythmia. You move from what's called atrial fibrillation, which is an irregular heartbeat, irregular. Then you can have ventricular tachycardia, which is, you get that when you anything above 100. So you can get that exercising, but it's not dangerous. It's just your heart rates up. SVT is where the trigger for the rhythm is not coming from the sinus node. It's coming from an aberrant node elsewhere in the atrium. and it can cause very, very fast what we call reentrant rhythms. And with that kind of rhythm, the heart is almost paralyzed. Right. And then at 190 electronic beats, your heart can't beat 190 times a minute. And so the heart just quivers. And you get this circle, what's it called, this kind of a reentrant rhythm. And that can kill you. Basically, if you're in SVT for any length of time, you might just pass out, first of all, or your heart just may stop. Okay. That's generally not going to be caused by dietary potassium. That's going to be caused by something other than that. And generally it's coronary artery disease that may actually cause it. Okay.
Thank you very much. And I want to add that someone in that situation is truly necessary to, if you want to reverse or improve your heart condition, you really have to do more than just work with a diet, okay? So, besides taking the potassium, magnesium, in reality, we should be taking all trace minerals for the benefit of our health. And next month will be part 2 of heart disease, because there's a lot more to cover than just half an hour, even though Keisha gave me more time. But the reality is that in 2 months, we're going to talk about nutrition, okay? I can say that with natural medicine, I reversed congestive heart failure, and I stopped a heart attack. In fact, many of you might already know that cayenne pepper can stop a heart attack, okay? Cayenne pepper, you know, we hear about stimulants like caffeine, but that's a stimulant for the nervous system. Cayenne pepper is stimulant in the circulatory system. And I know several naturalists who walk around with their cayenne pills, okay? Because one of them saw a person in the street having a heart attack, and he opened the capsule and put some cayenne pepper on the mouth and literally stopped the heart attack, okay? So that's a little more out of the norm, what you're discussing. But in any case, the potassium is beneficial for the heart, and magnesium, along with trace minerals. So, now I'm going to talk about 10 bad habits that we can reflect on to stop those bad habits so that we can improve in our preventive heart disease, okay? Number 1, believing what you read. Have you gone to the store and you see a cereal box that says good for your heart? Okay, and you wonder, well, it has these bad oils, it has sugar. What is good for your heart in the ingredients of the cereal? So we have to be careful when we read labels. And I recommend that when you see something in the front, read the ingredients. Because right now, there's more than 60 different words for sugar, okay? So you might not recognize the word, and you say, oh, it doesn't say sugar, but you might have sugar in 3 different manners of phrases, because corn syrup is a form of sugar, and so it can have 3, 4 different words that end up meaning sugar, okay? So we need to recognize that, you know, we live in a time where integrity has gone out the window. You think a corporation's going to be honest, but no, it's not true. So we have to be careful what we're eating, what we're reading as far as ingredients in foods, that there's very few things in the market today, I would say, that's in a box that's good for your heart, okay? Number 2, staying out of the sun. Have you heard that? Stay out of the sun because you might get cancer, all right? They did some studies, and 90% of the population is deficient in vitamin D, okay? And sometimes we're in the sun, but we're all covered up. So unless the sun is hitting our skin directly, we might be deficient in vitamin D. And vitamin D is one of the preventions for heart attacks. Now, next month I'm going to talk more about heart attacks, but I'm just going to make this comment. 80% of the heart attacks are because of a blood clot. Okay? 80%. And in natural medicine, if we put lemon juice in water, it's one of the easiest ways to clean our blood to prevent a blood clot. Okay? So I recommend that if you can, when you wake up, because you are truly dehydrated on an empty stomach after all night of not having food or liquids, wake up, drink a cup of warm water, add the lemon juice, and then drink and wait half hour so that you can hydrate your body. That lemon juice is good for the liver, the colon, digestive system, and it really can start help cleaning out your blood to avoid blood clots. Many of you might take a little baby aspirin. And studies are showing that baby aspirins, even at a small dosage, can long-term cause brain bleed. So again, I'm not telling you to stop taking baby aspirin. No. Just be aware of options we have to choose from, okay? All right then. Number 3. We have excessive sitting. Excessive sitting. I know that when we are retired, we might slow down because we're not working, running around. But I want to see, sedentary can increase a heart attack 50%. Okay? So are you walking every day? Are you having some movement? You know, remember when I mentioned the couple in La Crescenta, the lady has dementia? I mentioned an 89-year-old woman with dementia and the husband. He got what's called a goobie. And you sit down and you just move your feet. Okay? He has lung issues. So when he would walk a lot, he would like be out of breath, out of breath, out of breath. And he bought the goobie and he would sit down and start using it 5-10 minutes and gradually start increasing. And when I go over, sometimes I do half hour, it's like 3,000 steps. And so he said to me, you know, I went to a doctor, I had to do blood work. He actually had to go to the hospital. And I went to the hospital, I walked a lot, you know, parking lot. And when I got to the car, I realized I wasn't out of breath because without realizing that little simple exercise, sitting down, working on the feet, has increased his what's the word? Circulation and not tolerance, but his stamina, okay? And I said, well, that's great. And here we thought it was because of him with the lung issues, but it was just lack of exercise. And now he's doing like 7,000, and it's very easy. He's doing it without any problems. So if you have a problem walking, get a little goobie and start using it at home, sitting down. I think they're under $100, depending on the brand. All right then. Moving on, we have medications. Medications. Again, I'm not telling you to stop medications. I think if you have excessive medications, you should talk to your doctor and talk to him and consider each medication. I'm going to share an experience that, not an experience, but this did happen I was at the Silmar Church over 25 years ago. And there was a man at 55, he had a heart attack. And when I met him, he was 75. And so then he took more than 10 medications a day. And one day his wife had a stroke. She was taken to the hospital. And for 2 weeks, he would wake up, go to the hospital, and stay with her all day till nighttime. And then he would come home. And after 2 weeks, he realized he had not taken one single medication. And he got his medications. He looked at each one, what it was for, and side effects. And then he went to the doctor. And he said to the doctor, I've been telling you for years that I think I'm over-medicated. And this is what happened to me. And I'm telling you that out of all these medications, I'm only going to take 3. And he put the rest at the doctor's desk. And the doctor said, you're going to die. He said, well, you know what? That's my choice. And he was a stubborn man. I mean, when he got angry, okay? But the point is that he made the decision, no, I'm only taking these 3 and nothing else. And he lived another 15 years, okay? So, unfortunately, sometimes we can be over-medicated, and it's your decision to reflect on your medications and talk to your doctor to see what changes you can make, okay? Moving along, we also have snacks. How many of you like to eat after dinner, before bedtime? No one? I must confess, when I was going through digestive issues, I would wake up sometimes at 3 in the morning in pain, and I had to eat something for my stomach. But the reality is this. The ideal, as far as health goes, once you eat dinner, try to avoid snacking afterwards, especially when you're going to bed, because this allows your body to burn some fat, okay? And you sleep better, it's healthier, avoiding eating late or eating after dinner. Too much snacks are not good. And sometimes the snacks we want are not the healthiest to begin with, okay? All right, then we have also water and low salt, okay? I'm going to leave that for when we talk about water to move along. Dental care. Ignoring dental care where you could have an infection and it goes into your bloodstream, and that's not healthy, okay? And then there is microplastics. Studies are showing microplastics, like tiny, tiny particles that we are finding in the human body, and it's getting leached into our foods. And again, that's another subject we will go more into detail for another topic when we talk. So, to finish our talk today, I'm going to mention 2 things that I already said cayenne as far as being healthy for the circulation, being healthy for your heart. I want to mention also niacin, which is the B vitamin that helps turn food into energy. When we talk about niacin, the B vitamin, there's actually 8 B vitamins, and the recommendation is take a B complex because it contains all 8, and they all help in a different manner in the body. And lastly, we have hawthorn berry herb. Have you heard of hawthorn berry? Okay. It's very good for the heart. It strengthens the heart. It's like a tonic for the heart, okay? You can make a tea and drink it once a day, or you can take the capsules for the benefit of the heart, okay? So I am going to open up if there are any questions. We'll wait for the microphone, please. Okay, there are 2 questions in the back. The microphone's right behind you.
Yes.
Okay. You said something you could take to help the heart. What about pineapple? Pineapple enzyme, just the pineapple.
Pineapple enzyme?
Yes.
It's
for the
very
heart.
healthy.
Huh?
Pineapple enzymes are very good.
Bromelain.
Bromelain, yes.
Yes.
It's very good for the digestive system, and it's very good for the heart.
Okay, all right.
Question?
You mentioned reversing congestive heart failure. How do you do that?
Okay, one more time. I didn't hear.
You mentioned reversing something about reversing congestive heart failure.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Okay, you're talking at a natural, with natural medicine or in diet?
In general.
In general, okay.
The reason why I'm asking is because you said that you had an experience where you reversed congestive heart failure and
Yes.
stopped the heart attack. So that's what I'm asking.
Yes, yes, okay. I had a lady who's one of my clients, and I'm glad I brought this up because 1 month before most people have, remember, there's always an exception to the rule, okay? It's not 100% set in stone. But the average, 1 month before a heart attack, you can start feeling fatigue. I live in the San Fernando Valley. This client lives in Pomona, okay? So I don't see her that often. She suffers from an autoimmune disease. So what happened is that she called me. She says, I feel like I have lead in my legs. And I said, well, we try to figure out, did you work too much? What's causing this? Was there a change in diet and lifestyle? Something happened? And I said, okay, keep an eye on it. When you have an autoimmune disorder, you can have moments of fatigue, and it's not just smooth sailing. You have your ups and downs, okay? So I had just read 2 weeks before she tells me that this can be a symptom of a heart attack. 30 days before a heart attack, the body can start giving some signs and symptoms, okay? I had to go to Pomona. So 2 weeks later I go, and then she said to me, actually it was 3 weeks later, she said, I said, I'm going to see you and I'm going to take some drops. I'm talking homeopathic drops, okay? And it was on my mind. Could she be having a future heart attack? Because her stress level was tremendously high, okay? She had a lot of problems. There were a lot of issues. And her history of the last 7 years with an autoimmune disorder. So when I saw her that morning, I said to her, how are you feeling today? And she says, you know what? I have a little numbness on my face, on my jaw. And I said to her, I think you're going to have a heart attack. I'm going to encourage you to go to the emergency and get checked. No, I won't go. I don't have insurance. That bill's going to be $100,000. I won't go. I said, okay, here are the homeopathic drops. I want you to start adding lemon juice to your water to prevent a blood clot. Just take green juices. Don't eat any meat, anything heavy. And check yourself for symptoms, okay? And she said, all right. Well, the next day she calls me at 8 o'clock in the morning. And she said, I did have fish taco because I had company. But all day, every 2 hours, I'm making a green juice and just drinking water with my lemon juice. And I just had those 2 fish tacos. But I went to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. I woke up with my heart pounding. Okay, I felt like I had 50 pounds of weight on me. My whole arm got numb, and I started taking the drops. Every 5 minutes, she went to the bathroom. She had to throw up. She was 3 hours this way. And she said, I went to sleep, and now it all passed. And I said, do you want to go to emergency or to a doctor you want to see? And she goes, no. Okay. Another person had congestive heart failure. They had pills, and they wanted to reverse it, okay? 90 years old, taking 30 years of medication for the heart. And so we did start working with the diet, and again with homeopathy and nutritional supplements and hawthorn berries. After 6 months, he got tested, and the heart was working properly. And he stopped all medication, okay?
Was that person symptomatic?
I'm sorry?
Was that person symptomatic, the congestive heart failure? Were they having symptoms from the congestive heart failure?
Before they started the alternative treatment, you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there were palpitations and symptoms of angina. and he was taking 30 years of medication for the heart, okay? So he had been tested, having congestive heart failure and an irregular heartbeat, okay? So my point is that depending on the situation, the gravity of the situation, some things can be repaired just with diet. Other times, depending how severe it is, you might need to do additional measures, okay? Any other questions?
Someone did tell me about cayenne pepper with heart problems. So when I was suffering from an SVT, I tried the cayenne pepper. Maybe it was too late, or maybe it doesn't work with that. But I still ended up in the hospital.
You ended up in the hospital?
In the hospital, yeah.
Okay. Well, remember, when there's a major issue like this, it might not take one nutritional supplement to correct the problem. You cannot just depend on one, okay? Again, every case is different. You have to take into account how long have you been sick and what your present condition is, and not only your heart, but your immune system. There are a lot of factors involved. Now, should you quit taking the cayenne pepper? Well, unless it interferes with your prescription medication, I would say taking it can only help your circulation. Again, do not stop your medications, all right? But again, there's too many factors involved to just make a blank statement, okay? Barbara O'Neill, Dr. Barbara O'Neill, I'm sure most of you are familiar with her. She talks very highly of cayenne pepper, okay? But sometimes it's not just, oh, in 3 days this is going to get taken care of. So, yeah, there are many factors involved, okay? Any other question? Yes.
First of all, it's a pleasure to have you. Someone practicing and speaking up won't help. But, and you and the doctor, physician, well, I've heard of oral chelation. Do you suppose to have something to do with cleansing your arteries and all that stuff from blockages that leads to heart attacks and et cetera? What's your thoughts on that one? And on the magnesium, I was watching a YouTube physician, so to speak, and they spoke out on about 6 or 7 different magnesium supplements you can take. So which one do you recommend for the heart?
Everything can have a difference of opinion, okay? From what I've studied, magnesium glycinate is one of the healthiest. It's one of the most...
Which one is it?
Magnesium glycinate, okay? It's one of the most absorbable, okay? When you hear that vitamins, as far as the quality goes, I was taught that depending on the size of the molecule is how easy it will be absorbed in the body. Now, there could be a difference of opinion or something else added to it, okay? So if you were to hear Dr. Kyle, Pastor Kyle have another recommendation on magnesium, I'm the first one to welcome it, okay? Because everything can have a difference of opinion, and we're here to work together for the best of what we can do. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the first part of what you said.
The oral chelation.
Oral chelation, okay. Unless you wanted to pay to have those treatments, when you work with the greens and when you work with a change in diet, you know, God created the human body with the capacity that can heal itself, okay? The arteries, one of the vitamins that helps tremendously the arteries to have the flexibility is vitamin E, okay? Vitamin E. Because when the arteries fill up with plaque, it gets hard like a rock. It doesn't stay oily like we think of oil, okay? And that's one of the issues as far as arteriosclerosis, hardening of the arteries. Now, that's second part where we will be talking about the arteries, because that's a major issue in heart disease, okay? So, next month.
Okay, one more question. Are the omega-3, 6, and 9s,
Yes.
can you apply that to
Okay.
your
Omega-3s are the healthiest for heart, okay? The omega-6 are not the best. You asked me this today about canola oil,
Yes.
okay? Most oils, if you put olive oil aside, and most oils are processed and refined, and they're not that healthy. They're not that healthy, and that's why it causes inflammation.
So canola oils,
It-
what's
it-
your recommendation?
It would not pass. I don't know about you, doctor. It would not be the healthy oils. Okay? It would not be a good oil that I consider good.
And for us veggies, it's in most of our veggie meats. Yes. Transition. Yes. Guilty as charged.
I agree. I know some Advent, and it's not to criticize. It's just sad fact that the vegetarian meats are not the healthiest. Okay, they're not the healthiest. They might taste good, but they're not the healthiest. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's an increase in cancer among Adventists who are vegetarians, only because they're eating this processed meat that's not the best. And they're eating a lot of it. True. True. That is correct. Okay. Right, right, right. So that's one factor to consider, okay? And it was supposed to be transitional, but we got stuck there and we're eating it 40, 50 years after becoming vegetarians, okay? Now, how many of you are on YouTube? How many of you watch YouTube, okay? There's a couple in Arizona. I like watching them. They're not Adventists. It's called Well My World. And they make simple 10-minute recipes, but they don't even use oil, okay? No sugar, they use date sugar. But the point is, you can give really some simple tips for making easy recipes. No vegetarian, it's just like the garbanzos, legumes, very healthy, okay? It's Well My World. So in case you might say, well, I don't know what to make. And they have about 4 or 5 videos on just 10-minute recipes that are simple and very healthy. All right? Any other questions?
Cayenne pepper, how do you take it? Is it in capsules or?
Okay. You can take a capsule. You can buy the capsules, or you can buy the cayenne pepper and just get a pinch and add it to your water, depending how much you can tolerate. Have you heard of the lemon cleanse? The master lemon cleanse? Okay. This is if you really want to do a detox, you can 10-day detox where it's water, lemon juice, maple syrup, and cayenne pepper. And you put a pinch depending how much you can tolerate, okay? Some people just do it for 1 day. Some people do it 3 days, and some people do it 10 days. Pardon? Yes, there's also a tincture you can buy. But if you just bought the cayenne pepper, it's ground pepper, you can add that to your water, okay?
If you're diabetic and you cannot take the maple syrup,
Why can't you take maple syrup?
it may make my sugar go up.
Okay. Keep in mind one thing. There's a difference between natural sugar, like fruit sugar. There's a difference between processed sugars, like our desserts, refined sugar, and there's a difference between maple syrup, okay? When you eat fruit sugar, your sugar does spike. but it's going to come down. And the body responds different to it than when you eat refined, processed dessert sugar. There's a difference. I have a colleague in Nebraska. He has a home clinic. He's been doing this 40 years. He works only with herbs, hydrotherapy, and diet. No matter what the problem the patient has, they come to his house for 30 days. For 3 days, even diabetics, for 3 days, he will give fruit in the morning, fruit at lunch, and fruit for dinner. And between the fruit, he does herbal teas, okay? Even if it's a diabetic. Mostly has cancer, emphysema, cirrhosis of the liver. So even with diabetics, he does give the sugar, and he has tremendous success in restoring health, okay? Now, if you have an 8-ounce glass of water and you put a teaspoon of maple syrup and maybe half a lemon and a dash or a quarter of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, that would help with the master cleanse if someone wanted to do that, okay? Any other question? Right here, one more question.
Can you explain paradoxical vocal cord dysfunction?
Explain what?
Paradoxical vocal cord dysfunction.
Pastor, could you explain that?
Dysfunction? Okay. The vocal cords lie side by side in your what's called the larynx. And it's the vibrations of the vocal cords that allows you to intonate, to make a sound. If the vocal cords are completely separated, you can't speak. There's no air that will pass through, or the air just passes without any vibration. So the fact that you hear my voice now is because my vocal cords are vibrating as I breathe out, and they separate open when I breathe in so that I can get air in. Paradoxical vocal cord dysfunction is where the cords are not operating as they should. Either they're too tight and they can't separate, or they're not opposing one another well enough to get full sound out. So you get a raspy kind of voice sometimes with that. It's a throaty kind of sound, but it's not your natural voice. It could also cause some problems even when people are trying to eat. Although your food doesn't pass through your larynx, it passes through the esophagus, which lies just behind it. But if you're not able to handle your secretions very well because of your vocal cords, then you might have other problems with eating. It's called paradoxical because we don't know why. It's a paradox as to what happens. This sometimes happens in patients who had a stroke or who had what's called a TIA, which is a transient ischemic accident, and they have some problems with their vocal cords. It can happen if you have a blow to the neck, some trauma to the neck can cause it also. And it requires a specialist who actually treats these patients all the time to try to just diagnose why you're having those problems and then see if they can treat it. But it's not something that general medicine does. And I don't know I believe in food as medicine. I just don't know of a food that will reverse that process. It's going to take something other than what you eat. That's probably true. You know, one of the things that we have to recognize is that Western medicine can't treat everything. There are a lot of things that we don't even understand. That's why they call it the practice of medicine. We're still practicing, trying to get it right. So there's some things we just don't understand. But there's a lot that we do, and so I think our obligation as human beings is to take the knowledge that we do have and apply it to the best way we can to deal with what we can control. Trust God with the things that we cannot control. Say, well, irritable bowel syndrome and paradoxical larynx issues, I don't think they're related. I could be wrong, but the systems are so disparate and so far apart. I don't think that's the cause.
Okay, thank you very much. It's Pastor, closing comments?
You know, it's really funny. I feel like everything that Ali talks about, I've had. So you wouldn't know this, but when was it, Joyce? A few months ago, maybe 6 months ago. I think it was right after or just before I came here to pastor. I had my aortic valve replaced in my heart. Was that before I came? Yeah. That's why I had to delay coming, because I had my aortic valve replaced. And they replaced my aortic valve through a catheter through my leg, in my groin, so I didn't have to open my chest. So I have an artificial valve in my aorta, and I have part of my valve and my mitral valve removed from years past from that. So between duct tape, baling wire, and super glue, I'm a relatively healthy man. But I need all those little things to kind of keep me pieced together in one piece. Heart disease is generally what I had is what's called structural heart disease. Coronary artery disease, as Ali has mentioned, can be prevented. And with diet, what we didn't talk about is exercise, and that's also very valuable at keeping blood supply going. I've had a problem in my legs with peripheral artery disease, and that generally means I have a higher risk for coronary artery disease. The last calf I had, my coronary arteries were clean, but my peripheral arteries were not. I think that when you get 50 or above, it's really important that you have a full physical, and that includes lab work, EKG, perhaps even a chest x-ray. Talk to your doctor about any symptoms you may have, because you can probably head off a lot of things early if you know about it. Newsflash, nobody lives forever. I know that comes as quite a shock to Billy. He was planning on living forever. However, what you want to do, and these talks are so important, you want to shorten what is known as the disability zone. The disability zone is from the time you become disabled to the time you die. And for some people, that could be years, right? You'd rather it be minutes and not years. How do you decrease the disability zone? Diet and exercise, especially some resistance exercise, weight-bearing exercise. One of the things that makes it harder for older people to continue to move around and do well is they've lost muscle mass. And from 50 on, you begin to lose muscle mass every year. If you let that go on, you'll get to the point where you're so weak, you can't do anything. You just become bedridden. Not because of any disease, just because you allowed your muscles to deteriorate. So if you think about maintaining good heart function, keeping your blood pressure under control, keeping your circulation optimal, exercising, and rest, believe it or not, getting the rest you need, is also very helpful to preserve your heart function. I like to consider that we can add years to our life, but I'd rather us add quality years to our lives. It doesn't, who wants to be sick and live for 20 years sick when you could live for 20 years healthy and able to do things and enjoy things? So you have to just decide you're going to fight back. It's not easy. I spent an entire 12 months in 2023 almost unable to walk. And I've been fighting back ever since. So now I go to the gym. I'm lifting weights 3 times a week. I'm trying to gain my strength and build back my muscle mass. And my wife, the water police, make sure I drink my 8 glasses of water a day. And if you see me walking and I start swishing, it's because I drank too much water from my wife. But I think it's important to, is she talking here? Switch mics? Can you hear that all right? So I think it's important to take what Ali has said and apply it, because there's simple things that we can do to improve our health. But there was a study done at Tufts University years ago on the disability zone, and what they did is they looked at nursing home patients. And these are people already in the nursing home. They've been there for a while. They gave each of the nursing home patients in the study group a tin can of vegetables and had them start lifting it, doing curls, lifting it over their head, exercising with a can of vegetables. And then they gradually increased to a bigger can, stuff that's around the house. And those folk got better. They were able to walk better. They were able to function better because they added muscle back to their bodies. You don't have to be as muscle-bound as my associate pastor. He's a chiropractor by training, so he understands how the body functions and how it should work. Our friend that we were just talking to a minute ago, he's a linebacker, hoping to go to the NFL. That brother's buff. When I go out to do work in the community, I want him walking beside me. You don't have to be that big, but what you do have to have is solid muscle mass that's appropriate for your age and body habitus, and strength. So those are things we can talk about later. But were you blessed by what you heard tonight from Ali in terms of heart disease? We want to thank her. You know, what she does is not easy, because I can tell you, I talk to you folk all the time. This is a tough crowd. And so you have to really be prepared to have these conversations. Yes, sir. What's the best cayenne pepper? Are there various types of cayenne pepper? There are different brands. It doesn't sound like there's one that's necessarily better than the others. What's that? Oh, you're talking about the power of yeah. Apparently there's a difference in potency of the pepper. I think if there are differences in potency, you can adjust by differences in the amount that you use. Right. So the most potent, you can use less, and the less potent, you have to use more to get the same effect. By the way, cayenne pepper is a vasodilator. That's why it works around heart disease. If you're having a heart attack and you took cayenne pepper, it's going to vasodilate and make it increase the blood supply, which may, same thing we do tell people to take an aspirin. It's an antiplatelet to help break up any clots that may be starting in the coronary arteries. So the first time somebody gets chest pain and you think it's a heart attack, you have them swallow an aspirin and let that ideally dissolve in the mouth. Now just put it in the stomach, dissolve it in the mouth so it gets into the bloodstream faster. And if you have some cayenne pepper close, you use that too. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation this afternoon. Let's stand. Father, thank you for giving us this information that we've learned tonight. Help us to prosper and be in health, which we know is your desire for us. Give us the discipline to do what is right and to apply the knowledge that we gain to our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Good night, and we'll see you